All right, everybody. It's no secret that I like to go after the incel community sometimes, not like in a hateful or cruel way. I used to be one of them. Maybe not as far into the rabbit hole of inceldom as many of them are, but at a certain point, I was a young teenage white boy who was very, very much felt like I was entitled to losing my virginity before I turned 18 or 19 or whatever. And as I got older, and as that didn't happen, and as I got more and more entitled, and as my, just as I generally just did not know how to talk to women, and I felt as though other guys in like my setting were getting girlfriends and were losing their virginities. They probably weren't. They were probably bragging about things that weren't happening, to be fair. At least some of them definitely were. It led to this sort of idea that, like, I was owed it, right? Most incels will never admit this, but I was an incel, and I will admit how it was that I felt. Deep down, I felt like I was owed a relationship, like I was in some way entitled to it. And it wasn't until that entitlement was broken, until I had the realization that women are not objects or a prize to be won for me as a man, but instead people that I need to like respect as such and establish relationships with as such, and that sexual and romantic relationships with women will highly likely come about naturally through that. And believe it or not, within a month of me making that realization, within a month of that switch flipping in my head, I was balls deep in some pussy. In a girl's car, in a church parking lot. A girl who was 3 years older than me. Which, when I was 18 years old, you better believe that was like I loved MILFs back then, and you better believe me being 18 and getting with like a 21-year-old was like the closest I could get at the time, all right? I was thrilled, all right? That realization very quickly, the realization that women are not like this object, this prize, this goal to achieve, but just people that once you realize, treat them and respect them as such, you'll find yourself just engaging with them more in contexts that will oftentimes lead to whether or not they're interested in you becoming so obvious that there isn't this question of like, oh, do I tell her how I feel? Oh, maybe she doesn't feel the same. If generally you kind of know if you're going about it in the right way. If you go about it the right way, if you become friends with a girl and you like, actually speak to her about things she's interested in, she talks to you about things you're interested in, and you form a genuine friendship, it should not be that hard to figure out whether or not a relationship is likely or possible between the two of you. If you feel like it's not, then chances are it's probably not, and it's just a friendship. And if it is just a friendship, you aren't entitled to it being anything more. If you liked a girl and you became friends and you were hoping for it to become more and it doesn't, that's too bad. You aren't owed that relationship. I know it sucks to hear. It's hard to hear it. It feels insulting, and it probably even makes you kind of upset. But like, it won't be until you make that realization that things will start to change for you incels out there, should you be watching this video. With that said, though, it's time to talk about the actual incel propaganda, what I like to go after the most. Now, incels love to make very broad, sweeping statements about women, particularly women nowadays. Many of them tend to believe that feminism and modern-day progressive movements have made women entitled and spoiled, and granting women the rights and privileges they have been given now to bring them to a somewhat more equal level with men socioeconomically and, in our society, that these things have actually made women too, like they've gotten too spoiled. They've got too much going for them, and now they are, like men just can't do enough to get with them, right? A very common talking point is that only 1% of men will get, or sorry, I think it's that 90% of women are only interested in 10% of men or something, which is absolutely absurd, because if you actually extrapolate that data, you start to realize that there should not be anywhere near as many taken men in this world as there are. But then, of course, they have to respond to that by saying, well, then, as it turns out, women are actually only after money. They're only after attention. They're only after fame. So they start to throw in these extra broad sweeping negative multipliers that start to justify their belief as to why women having interest in men that aren't them is somehow a demonstration of them lacking moral character. These women not wanting to have sex with them makes them bad people. Because the men they are having sex with are bad people, according to them. Very common, like, talking point. We could go down the list of like, incel talking points, or we could even go onto incels. I think it's incel.is is the name of the website, the new incel forum site. That one's wild. It's just hard to navigate and find, like, good content to respond to, because a lot of it's really just people posting their suicide notes, and it's just kind of depressing. However, a very common strategy of incel propagandists, and not even like incel propagandists, but like your right wing cater to the incel and use the incel movement and like men's sexual frustration to bolster your propaganda. Those types of people, they love using examples where women actually do the things that they like to claim all women do. Even if it's not common, even if it doesn't happen often, even if it's exceptionally rare, they will just point to any one example and say that it is common, that it is an epidemic, and that it's a huge issue that needs to be fought against. And normally I just kind of roll my eyes at it. I'm just kind of like, nah, women aren't getting more entitled. They aren't getting bitchier. They don't take joy in making men feel sad and rejecting them. They aren't like horrible bitches that are out there leading you on purpose to make you feel like shit. But then you go on Twitter and you encounter women on Twitter. And a lot of women on Twitter are perhaps the worst possible examples of women that you could possibly imagine. What I'm about to show you is not a meme. It is not from a sock puppet troll account, and the thread that follows, as well as the tweet that started it, is all real and unironic. So we've got a tweet here from A, I feel like with 126,000 followers, I feel like you can kind of put together what kind of girl this person is just by their profile picture and their name and their @ on Twitter. Am I stereotyping in a problematic way to say that I can predict many parts of this person's personality just from the Powerpuff Girls profile picture, the one-letter username, and the incomprehensible @ with love in it? I think I can. Anyway, the tweet says, "No, the guy I kept rejecting finally moved on. Heartbreak emoji, heartbreak emoji, heartbreak emoji." And then we've got another girl named Fentanyl with 40,000 followers, it seems. And of course, 310,000 likes. I'm sure if we clicked on the likes, it's all from a bunch of women who are actually real women on Twitter. This is not like sock puppet accounts or anything. Why he gotta give up. That's how you know he wasn't serious in the first place. Lamau, I rejected this sweet guy various times. Then a couple months later, he's dating someone new. Saw him on the train with her after school. Then once I got home, I cried. Just, lol, this is for real. They didn't want you, but also didn't want you to move on. They literally interpret it as these guys weren't trying hard enough to get them. Then once we scroll down a bit, we finally start to get hate when that happens. Like, don't you want to just try harder? You rejected him. Of course, he's going to move on. Finally, we got a reasonable person. Not you guys giving Andrew Tate free advertising. True. Okay, yeah. So finally we start to get like, but these tweets have shit tons of fucking likes. These are real women tweeting this and getting mad. Let's look at the likes. Real woman, real woman, real woman, real woman from what I can tell. Like, these could just be like troll, like Russian bot accounts liking the tweet to like sow division. But like this account has a shit ton of followers, and these are all like, I'm gonna say it, basic bitches that think this kind of stuff and say this kind of stuff, trashy ass basic bitches that are also following this and liking this tweet. Listen, guys, this is some red pilling shit, all right? This is some red pilling shit. Now, I think it's important as anti-incel activists, okay? As those that would stand against the incels, to acknowledge, much like we have to do when the right brings up examples of the left being cringe, to acknowledge real social issues that can happen, even on a smaller scale, with some nuance, right? Even if, like, and acknowledge that there may be a hint of truth in the propaganda, but cut the lies around the truth and point it out, right? So here, there definitely is a tendency in our society to push women from, like, the moment they can speak, that pushes women to, like, get married to a wealthy, successful man before they get out of college. Like, let's be real, whether it's outright stated or implicitly, stated, our society heavily pushes women and lays the path out in front of women as that they should be married, they should get their MRS degree in college, get married to a guy that will allow them to quit their job and become a housewife to pump out babies and clean and cook all day. Like, that is the path that society has built for women in front of them. This is an extremely misogynistic societal, like, standard that has been built by the patriarchy. Ooh, the scary word, the scary feminist word, patriarchy. Ooh. The problem is, this leads to examples, this does lead to, in some cases, behaviors and thought processes in women that are not the stereotype of, like, oh, she wants to be like a scientist, but her parents insist that she gets married to some doctor in college instead and becomes a housewife. Like, there are absolutely women out there that take that expectation in society and decide, I know that I'm attractive. I know that I can use men who have money to have a good time, go out on free dates, go on nice vacations, stuff like that. And I know I can get attention out of guys by leading them on. So I'll do it. There are absolutely women who have been conditioned to thinking that is acceptable behavior, and absolutely been conditioned into that being their way of gaining attention or a good time or money or anything like that, is taking advantage of men that pursue them, because they have been raised and grown up in a society that has made women's sexuality a token, a currency to be exchanged for goods, for any type of favor, right? You know, like, I know this is the way that incels think about things, but, like, to a certain degree, our society has trained women that, like, you know, not necessarily that if a guy takes you on a date and pays for dinner, you have to fuck him, but that if you're a hot girl and you ask, and like, you get a guy to take you on that date, that you can get a free dinner out of it. Like, that's definitely, like, a thing that a lot of women have been taught as being, like, a part of the transactional nature of the way that we view sex and sexuality and dating nowadays. And because of that, it does lead to this kind of shit. Like, women that feel comfortable posting on Twitter, and then 310,000 other women that feel comfortable liking the tweet about how heartbroken they are, the guy they've been rejecting and leading on. Most likely not rejecting, most likely leading on, moving on and being upset about it. And then, like, Christ, that's how you know he wasn't serious in the first place. Can you imagine pushing that idea to the average incel? Yeah, you're not trying hard enough. The girl that keeps rejecting you, that doesn't like you, she wants you to try harder. If you give up and move on with your life, that's just telling her that you didn't care enough about her. This is just full on driven, like, in part, no doubt, by, like, having fun making men miserable. I have no doubt that some of these women genuinely do hate men, just like the TERFs and whatnot, and do get kind of a kick out of making men miserable and playing with their emotions and kind of like fucking with them. But a lot of this really does feel like taught behavior, societally taught behavior. Toxic femininity? I guess that's something you could call it, I suppose. It definitely is toxic. But this shit is just pure incel fuel, and I'm so glad that I am capable of looking at, like, gender and dating dynamics in our country and in our world with enough nuance and maturity to not see this as like, ugh, yeah, I knew it. These evil bitches, this is what they all think. This is what they're all like. This is what they think of me. They just want to use me for money. Like, yeah, like, thankfully I'm not, like, I'm glad that I'm not in that place, but you better believe there are a lot of men who are going to see this tweet thread, and it is just going to be another brick laying down the foundation of their extremely toxic conservative ideology. Absolutely. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this segment, please consider leaving a like. It really does help out the channel. Whether you realize it or not, it just makes YouTube push my content to far more new people, which means my channel blows up, new people see my content, new people hear my arguments. There's really no downside to it. Definitely consider hitting that like button. And of course, if you want to see more from me here on YouTube, you can subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications so that YouTube actually tells you when I go live or if I upload a new video. And of course, if you want to see more from me online, you can follow my social medias, which are all linked down below in the description, including my Instagram, my TikTok, my fan Discord, and of course my Twitter, where all the spiciest memes happen. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. And of course, if you want to support me financially and you've got the money for it and you don't need it for anything else, you can also financially support me over on my website, xanderhall.com/live, either in the form of a donation or a gifted sub to somebody else or a sub for yourself. But regardless of how you support me financially, whether it be through my website or YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, or through Patreon, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.